Hi Stuart, lovely to meet up with you again and do some further work on your game. Obviously, the first thing we discussed was the grip. You had a tendency to hit the ball that was starting slightly left and then hooking, struggling with some height as well. We discussed the fact that you had a quite strong grip, but that you could play good golf with a very strong grip. There's been some great players and very straight hitters over the years who've demonstrated a strong grip, and certainly haven't, struggled with a hook per se. So one of the things that you must do is you must make sure that your club face position at address complements the type of grip that you have, and also what you're trying to do with the golf ball. So we've got a strong grip and we're trying to start the ball up the right, and we certainly don't want a club face that's square to slightly shut at address. So you can keep your grip as you would normally have it, so that it's comfortable. It's not a badly constructed grip, it's just a grip that's slightly too much, if you will, rotated to the right, if you were to look at the orthodox grip or the prescribed correct grip. However, we can make that work if our attachment to the club changes. So if you think of the hold as more of an attachment, more like a pair of clamps, those clamps can stay in the position they are in, and we just need to rotate the club face slightly. So one of the things we suggested that did the trick was, before we set up, if we hold the club must look maybe, let's say, 5 degrees open before we put it in behind the golf ball. And what that's going to do then is just combat any tendency you've got to have the club face closing down a little bit too much because of the grip. As soon as you did that, all the shots were going higher and they were starting much straighter. In regards to the swing itself, one of the things that we saw, and you hit on it yourself, was that there was not enough separation between the lower centre of gravity, if you will, the hip girdle, and the centre of the shoulder turn. And as we changed direction, the centre of the shoulder turn, rather than being stable, was drifting forward slightly. There was a slight lack of hip slide. The hips are sliding, but not quite as much as we would like them to do, and as a result we've got a limited amount of axis tilt as we're coming into the golf ball. The release point is a little bit too wide, and the wrists are uncocking a little bit too early. So the move that we've got to try and create is more of a separation between the hips and the upper centre. We want to keep the upper centre stable, as you're demonstrating here. You've got a couple of ways to do that, a couple of feels that we discussed. The one that worked particularly well, because obviously you can't have someone holding your head every time you're hitting balls, not unless you're on tour, was to put a cane down directly in line with the centre of the shoulder turn and try and stay on that cane throughout the downswing. And you can see when you do that the right arm expands slightly quicker, the wrist angle is maintained slightly longer, the release point moves forward, therefore preventing the tendency that you've got to hit the ground behind the ball. The wrist uncocking slower, or the right arm straightening quicker, is producing or reducing the amount of closure you've got on the club face. And then what we've also got now is much more side bend or axis tilt, which is going to help us hit that ball much higher, as you demonstrated during this period of your lesson. Do we expect your swing to look like the bottom footage there the next time we meet? No, not necessarily as good as that. I think that was a particularly good example, which is why I've used it. I would, however, expect to see there be a slight separation between the upper and lower centre, and therefore a much higher and much more controlled ball flight. Good luck with it. Have a great Christmas, and I look forward to hooking up with you in 2015. Well done.